Story 1. Update: my 24F mom, 49F, is cheating on my dad, 50M, and I don't know what to do. My mom, 47F, and dad, 50M, have been together for 25 years, and I could have honestly said that they were the ideal relationship in my mind. They rarely ever argued, always talked to each other, and, I thought, were always loving and faithful to each other. I can even remember in school a few of my teachers telling me that my dad and mom were a great couple and that I should be thankful that I had a great example of what a healthy relationship looks like. They've rarely argued. I can count on both of my hands the times they've yelled at each other. They've always been happy together, as far as I know. I needed to use my mom's laptop to send off some work emails as mine was not connecting to our Wi-Fi. I started sending off emails and my mom's messages popped up on her laptop. It was from a guy named Chris, and he thanked her for draining him last night. I, not knowing what the hell was going on, decided to open up her messages, and I saw that she has been cheating on my dad for the past year at least. The messages they sent each other were extremely explicit, and they sent pictures and videos. I started to hyperventilate and realized what was happening. I started to dry heave. I was able to screenshot the messages and send the pictures to my email. After that I told my parents I was going out for a bit. My dad told me to stay safe and kissed my forehead, and I nearly broke down in the house. I was able to drive away for a few minutes and get to a private location and cry. Why would she do this? Does she not love my dad? He's done so much for her, waited on her hand and foot when she broke her leg, ski and moved so she could be closer to her family when she went through PPD with me. He's done so much for all of us, and she does this? Why? Dad was always there for her when she needed him, worked overtime to allow us to experience things together. I don't know what I'm going to tell my sister, 18, she's coming back from university next week and she adores our dad. It's also the last thing I want to tell my brother, 22, because he's doing his master's and I don't want anything to distract him from his final exams in a few months. It's like I can't tell anyone about this. All of my friends' parents are divorced or were never married to begin with, and they also looked at my parents as what a good marriage looked like. I'm sorry if I'm rambling, I just don't know what to do. Whenever I think about it I feel hurt. I remember when I was 16 and my mom showed me the love letters and poems my dad wrote for her, and they were all so beautiful. He's loved her with all of his heart for 25 years and she's been doing this to him. The last person I want to tell is my dad. I feel as if me telling him will break everything, and the dad I knew who was so loving and caring will be gone. I've been told by my friends that it happened to their parents too, that for years they were never the same. My best friend's dad took his own life when he found out about his wife's infidelity. I'm sorry if this is rambling, I'm just so hurt and confused. Why would she do this? How do I tell my dad that the person he's loved for the last 25 years has betrayed him? Please, any advice is appreciated. Update. Sorry for this post being so long. A lot has happened since the last time I posted. TLDR, asked my mom if they had an open relationship / any agreement to see outside parties. They do not, so my mom was cheating on him. I told my dad what I knew. He ended up searching my mom's laptop and saved a majority of the emails. He then confronted my mom. She denied having an affair. My dad has now filed for divorce, has kicked my mom out of the house, and is going NC aside from through lawyer. Sorry for the post being so long, it has been a while since I last updates and a lot has happened. Thank you for everyone who responded and everyone who DM'd me with advice and support. So after I got back home I headed straight to bed. When I was having breakfast the next morning I was on Twitter and my mom saw a thread on the Chris Rock situation at the Oscars and we got to talking about it. I ended up asking about if she would have or ever had an open relationship / agreement with my dad. She shut it down straight away and said she could never do such a thing and that she loved my dad too much to ever let him sleep with someone else. She then went on for about 10 minutes on how much she loved him and how they were each other's one and only. I wanted to scream at her that I knew what she was doing, but I held my tongue and knew that I had to tell my dad about what I had found out. At the end of the week I got everything together and asked my dad if he wanted to spend the day with me and go get food and do whatever he wanted to do. He said sure, and that he hasn't really spent any time with me since I started my new job and it'd be nice to spend the day together. I tried to keep everything together, but he could tell something was off. We went to his self-storage lot as he needed to pick up some stuff to bring back to the house. Before we left he stopped me and asked if I was alright. He said, "Hey, are you okay? You've been really quiet and clingy today. Did something happen with your boyfriend?" I ended up bursting into tears and told him what happened. He asked if I was 100% sure, and I said that I had my laptop with me and I could show him some of the emails I had saved. When he saw them I could see the pain in his eyes. It was like someone had stabbed him. For a few minutes he was silent and there were tears just streaming down his face. He wasn't sobbing, there were just tears. He hugged me and said, "Thank you for telling me about this. No matter what happens from here, please remember I love you and your brother and sister. You lot are my pride and joy, don't ever forget that." He dried his face and we ended up driving home. When we got back he told me to not mention anything to Mom and he wanted to check some things before he talked to her about this. We all ended up going to sleep early that night, but I couldn't rest. I kept on having nightmares where the worst happened to my dad. I ended up going downstairs at around 2 a.m. and saw my dad on Mom's laptop looking through her emails. I asked what he was doing, and this was the first time I've ever seen my dad so angry. He turned his head around to me and just said, "That fucking bitch," and left the house. I checked the emails and saw that he had 4 days open. Seeing this has truly killed any part of me that had any feelings to my mom. The days in question were the day my aunt, Dad's younger sister, died, the day after, the day of her funeral, and the day her ashes were scattered. In those emails were my mom asking to meet up with Chris and asking Chris what he was going to do with her when she got to his place. I vomited again and realized that Dad had just left the house and I had no idea where he was going. I got outside and saw he was sitting in the car and he was bawling. He couldn't stop crying. I felt as if this had broken him. After about an hour I convinced him to come back inside and try to get some rest. I closed the laptop and put it back so my mom wouldn't find out about my dad going through her history. On the following Tuesday is when my dad decided to confront Mom about her affair. I was not at home when it happened, but he sat down with her and asked if she was having an affair. She of course denied this and said that she could never do such a thing and that she loved him with all her heart. My dad lost it and showed her the emails and yelled at her, phoned her brother to pick her up, and that he was filing for divorce immediately. Mom tried to say it was a mistake and that they could work through this, but Dad isn't having any of it. Since that day he has not contacted her unless it is through a lawyer. My uncle has come over the house a few times to get clothes and other things for my mom, and he tries to give updates on her well-being to my dad, but he just shuts it down and says he doesn't care and says that she needs to speed up on getting paperwork signed. As for my brother and sister, I contacted my brother on the Wednesday and told him what had happened. I apologized because it was so close to his exams and this is the last thing that he should be worried about. He said that he'd be coming back once exams were over and that I should keep an eye on Dad just in case anything happened. My sister on the other hand came back home the day after I told her and hasn't really left Dad's side since. She basically waiting on him hand and foot, cleaning the house, making dinner for all of us. I think she's taking this the worse and my dad thought so too, so he asked her to see a counselor and that he'd be okay. My mom has tried to contact all of us and none of us have responded aside from making sure she had started on the paperwork and was in contact with a lawyer, etc. Dad has said that I should probably meet with Mom soon, as despite all that's happened between the two of them she was never a bad mom and loved us just as much as he did. So I will be meeting with her next week and I am dreading every minute of it. So now we're all in a weird place where we don't know what's going to happen next. Dad is a lot less like himself and is a lot more quiet and reserved, which scares me, but thankfully a lot of his friends and family have been over offering him support. The one funny thing I can say is when I told my close friends about their divorce, a lot of them made the joke that they'd be snapping up my dad once he's back on the dating market, which I can see as being a bit weird but is pretty funny because they admitted to having crushes on him when they were 16. Stupid stuff like that, even if they are jokes, gives me some hope that once this all ends he'll hopefully find someone who values and loves him like we all do. Story 2. My husband doesn't understand why I'm upset that he slept over a female coworker's house after a fight. My husband and I, 39M and 41F, just came back from our 11th anniversary vacation. We had an absolutely amazing time. The day after we came home he went fishing with his brother. When he came home he was in a horrible mood, snapping about everything I did. He was being completely fine to the kids though. But with me it was like I couldn't do anything right. We eventually had a huge fight. He ended up yelling and slamming a door. I told him to leave and cool off. I really can't even pinpoint exactly what he was mad at. He ended up leaving for the night. He came home and apologized for the fight and how he acted. I apologized for my part in the argument. I then asked where he had stayed last night. He can't stay at his brother's house due to his brother's wife's 3 cats. He told me a co-worker's house. I asked what co-worker and he said Julia. At first I legitimately thought he was joking. Julia is 23, single. She lives in an apartment complex not far from us. I asked him if he was serious and he said yeah. He ran into her after he left the house when he went to the store to get a soda. He told her what happened and she invited him to crash on her couch. He doesn't understand why I'm upset. By his logic, he was somewhere close to home, he didn't spend money on a hotel, he didn't have to spend a lot of gas money to drive to his mother's house. He said he slept on her couch and if she was a single male friend there wouldn't be an issue. I asked him if he thought it would be okay if I slept over one of my single male co-workers' houses. He said no, and that it's different, because single men aren't trustworthy. He doesn't understand why I'm upset. By his logic, he was somewhere close to home, he didn't spend money on a hotel. He didn't have to spend a lot of gas money to drive to his mother's house. He said he slept on her couch and if she was a single male friend there wouldn't be an issue. I asked him if he thought it would be okay if I slept over one of my single male co-workers' houses. He said no, and that it's different, because men aren't trustworthy. I'm just baffled by his logic and how he doesn't understand why I'm upset.